Welcome to the Dreddy Room and our information session about how the Taber Police Service will enforce the Community Standards Bylaw. We have made it clear in our pre-session instruction what the purpose of the session is. However, for those of you who did not see our message, the meeting is not a debate about the bylaw, a critique of the bylaw, a public meeting to address the concerns of the bylaw. The purpose of this meeting is to follow our mandate to inform and involve the residents of the town of Taber, and that is what we're going to do. If there are those amongst the crowd who wish to disrupt this meeting or presentation, we will stop the presentation immediately until you leave or are escorted from the building. There are no video cameras permitted to record this session. This includes media as well as others who may choose to use personal video recording devices. There is a maximum capacity for this room, and that is why we've only allowed 50 persons inside. We will be audio recording the session so that we may stream the presentation at a later time. We may also hold future sessions. You may also want to make individual appointments if you have further questions about our police response or are uncomfortable to raise questions about our police response in this venue. There may be a few minutes at the end of the presentation to answer any community members' questions. Media questions will not be answered within this venue. I would now like to introduce Dr. Graham Abela, Inspector and Operational Commander of the Taber Police Service, to give the presentation. Dr. Abela.
Thanks, Howard. Well, as Howard said, welcome everyone to the Dreddy Room, and it's so good to see you here and taking what I think is some important times out of your day in order to come and listen to what we have to say in relation to what I think you're going to see and I perceive as something that's been blown totally out of proportion. However, we will start and let you make your minds up about that. So, in order to give you a little bit of background, I just wanted to tell you, if you didn't know already, that bylaws are created in the town of Taber through municipal government. Municipal government gets that authority through a piece of legislation called the Municipal Government Act of Alberta. Now, bylaws in the community of Taber regulate everything from how much you pay for your taxes all the way to how often your dog can bark. Okay? It runs the gamut. Police services in the community of Taber, which includes our community peace officer, enforce the bylaws. In our case, we have 14 police officers and one full-time community peace officer who undertakes this responsibility. Now, some in the social media have questioned whether this bylaw is constitutional. We as a police service enforce many different laws, and I can tell you right now, under no uncertain terms, if the police service believes that a law is unconstitutional, we will not enforce that law. Police in a democratic society wear many hats. We are empowered to enforce the laws of our land, federal, provincial, and municipal. However, we are also the only ones in this room who have the responsibility in this community on the street to ensure that the fundamental rights of every one of you in this room, every Canadian citizen or permanent resident, anyone who's within the boundaries of our country, to make sure that those rights are protected. That's our job. So we're not here to debate the constitutionality of the bylaw. That's not up for the police to decide at this time. What I can tell you is that if the Taber Police Service charges someone with an offense under this bylaw, or any other law for that matter, the person charged has the ability to bring a charter application to the court and challenge the constitutionality of this law or any other law. If a judge decides, and that's who decides constitutionality issues, a judge, determines that the law is unconstitutional, they will make a ruling as such. In that case, the lawmakers will either be allowed to appeal that decision, change the law, or remove it completely from the books. I have to preface this conversation with you that I am not a constitutional lawyer. I have no constitutional specialty, and neither does anyone else in Taber. The Taber Police Service has a role. Our mandate is to inform, involve, and protect the residents of this community. We are often asked by our governing bodies about the social problems that are occurring in our community, and sometimes these questions are asked to assist the lawmakers with information about potential new bylaws, address policy, or speak to police budgets. This ongoing conversation is one of the principles of community policing, a policing philosophy which we espouse in our community. So that's kind of my introduction. Okay. What I wanted to talk about next, and I'm glad I got you in the room because I want to talk about the new Fieldhouse Sports Complex. I'm just kidding.
Wrong crowd.
Wrong crowd? All right. Of the 27 sections within the new bylaw, 14 of them are incorporated from previous bylaws that have been enacted in the town of Taber, or were previously dealt with under criminal code or provincial statute. So of the 27 sections that we have within the new bylaw, 14 of them we've seen before, or things like it. Now I want to give you the stats in relation to last year's picture of what municipal bylaw enforcement looked like in the town of Taber. Okay? According to our records management system, which we report to Statistics Canada with the Universal Crime Reporting, we're duty-bound to follow it. We had 451 bylaw reported issues. This might be an interesting stat. Of those 451 bylaw issues that we dealt with in our community, we only laid 55 charges. That means 92% of the charges, or the reports, or incidents of bylaw offenses that we dealt with were handled without charge. Of the 55 charges that were laid, 54 were convicted. 1 was withdrawn. If our previous enforcement behavior is indicative of our future enforcement behavior, you can see that the way we deal with bylaw issues is with very little obligatory enforcement. Most of these issues are resolved through effective community policing principles, the conflict resolution skills of our police officers, and common sense. Something that social media seems to be lacking. There is no reason to believe that our police officers will take this bylaw and start throwing tickets at people for new offenses under this bylaw. In fact, our plan is to educate the public around the new bylaw by talking to people about the infractions that we witness or are reported. Education is the first step in informing the public from a police perspective. The second step is the issuance of warnings. We are much more likely in dealing with people with new bylaws, in the first instance when dealing with these people, to give verbal warnings. The third option is a written warning. The fourth option is actually using the section of the bylaw, the new bylaw, actually laying a charge or an offense notice, bylaw notice under the bylaw itself, if the circumstances fit. And the fifth problem is dealing with that issue under a provincial statute, if applicable, or arresting someone under the criminal code if the elements of a criminal offense are made out. Now, we are not the first community to undertake this community standards bylaw process. In fact, each and every one of the bylaws that is within our bylaw came from another community. For the past 10 years, communities have been introducing policing community standard bylaws, such as ours with no backlash whatsoever. I ask you, what is different with ours? What was the catalyst that caused all of this sensational nonsense? Well, there's two things that have been brought to our attention by the community with this regard, and I don't necessarily disagree. The first is the misdirected, self-interested driven, and misinformed so-called legal experts. And the second is opinion-based, non-researched, sensationalized reporting, starting with the local paper. Everything you have heard is based on opinions, except for the authority of council to enact bylaws. That is the law. Why haven't charter challenges been fought in other jurisdictions where these same bylaws have been around since at least 2006? For example, Calgary Police Service Transit laid 7 spitting tickets in 1 month. No sensationalism, no hyperbole, no legal experts saying it's out of control. Did you hear about that? You can't put your foot on a park bench in Calgary. Bullying is against the law in several communities in this province through enacted bylaws. Is bullying subjective? I am at a loss as to why us, and I simply bring you back to the above. So what are the benefits for using a bylaw offense rather than a criminal or provincial statute? There's many. Bylaw offenses are a handwritten notice that can be handed out on site by a police officer who responds to a bylaw incident. It does not require the arrest of a person. We do not have to take a person into custody and release them on a document to appear in court. I think that's a good thing. It does not result in a criminal charge, meaning that if the marijuana lobby was here and asked police officers to charge with a simple ticket for simple possession of marijuana, they would agree with us. And many of in this room have actually spoken to me about that. But yet when we do it for a bylaw offense, it's inappropriate. People can simply pay a fine at the town office without going through Alberta Justice. It does not clog the courts with Part 2 summonses, meaning that no longer do we have to issue warrants for arrest for people to collect on these types of incidents, unless they go to prosecution and are found guilty or fail to appear on the prosecutionary note. It does not require attendance at court, meaning that you do not have to take time off from your busy day and interrupt your employers with attending court processes. If a person does not pay the bylaw offense, the offense notice is prosecuted, which means that you do have the right to plead not guilty, and you do have the right to have a judge hear that evidence. I think that's a positive. Charter notices can be filed. That's a positive. There's no demerits. Police resources are reduced. There's less court time, less disclosure requirements. And this is in keeping with Alberta Justice's push to move non-serious offences outside of the criminal justice system to a quasi-administrative role. We're the leaders. It's another discretionary tool that we can use as peace officers on the street. And another result of this, which wasn't the driver, because as you know we only lay 55 bylaw tickets a year, is that the community receives 100% of the fine revenue. The revenue does not go to the provincial coffers. So what are the pitfalls? Because I looked at both. There's more administration of the bylaw ticket that's required by the town staff. Without a doubt, this is going to put more pressure on the communications operators of the police service and the town of Taber staff in collecting monies. But other than that, I can't think of any more pitfalls from the police perspective. Now, the bylaw is divided into 6 sections, and this is where we get going into the meat of the bylaw. I'm sure you've all read it. I didn't provide you copies because you've all read it. It's been all over the news. Let's talk about minors out past curfew. So, when I was 12 years old in Taber, I used to remember hearing at 10 p.m. the town of Taber siren going off to tell me to get my butt home because I was going to be out past curfew. We have had a bylaw in existence in town for curfews since at least that time. That's 35 years. For people to say that the bylaw is new, they are mistaken. Our community police service did a survey in our last community survey, and we found that graffiti and mischief were the #1 concerns of the community. As part of our response to that, we made a suggestion that a bylaw be brought into place to assist us with graffiti issues. We have never had a graffiti bylaw in Taber, so this is new. However, I'm sure that you are people of common sense and have read that section of the bylaw and can see the benefits of having it. The last thing we want to do is provide young persons and adults, young adults, with criminal records for graffiti offenses. We have not had bylaws for spitting and urinating in public. However, unlike the media, who has portrayed the fact that you can't spit in Taber as the way that the law is written, it is absolutely inaccurate. What the law actually says is that you can't spit at anyone in a public place or on any public property or on private property that you do not own. So for those in the community whose parents did not teach them that it's not okay to spit on someone's property, we will oblige by teaching you how through a ticket. Furthermore, Section 178 and 179 of the Environmental Protection Act is what we used in the past, otherwise known as littering. This removes the requirement of having people to go to court for that offense and use the provincial justice system for issues such as spitting or urinating in public. Now, when we go into the fighting, loitering, and assembly of persons and panhandling section, I can tell you that bar fights and fighting in public have been a problem for police since policing began. The only sanctions that we had for bar fighting or fighting out in public was to arrest people for causing a disturbance by fighting, issuing them an appearance notice or a promise to appear, and having them appear in court. We also would arrest under the offense of assault, occasionally. But when two people who consensually fight don't hurt each other or don't assault each other, you do not have an assault. But I think you would all agree with me that two people publicly fighting, causing a crowd, the crowd getting excited, the crowd becoming agitated, is something that we would like to address. And like the cities of Edmonton, Calgary, Airdrie, the town of Lacombe, we have all introduced this fighting bylaw. We also have problems with large gatherings of individuals in our community. And that has drawn many complaints from the public. In fact, in 2013, we received 70 calls for service in this regard. The aftermath of these gatherings, found by the public and by the police, have been things like used condoms, urine, other bodily fluids, beer cans, bottles. We have reports of public sex acts, traffic complaints, as well as complaints of impaired driving. In some cases, threats have even been made against our police officers to draw us away from the community to a place where we'll be alone, where we will then be swarmed by these groups of people. We also have problems with crowds assembling outside of bars, especially during closing time, where there's fights and altercations. And often public property is damaged during these gatherings, such as the trees that you've seen in our new beautiful bulb outs, windows smashed, other mischiefs. And the Assembly bylaw is meant to deal with those situations. And I would suggest nothing else. Of course, the Criminal Code has an unlawfully assembly section that deals with 3 or more people of like mind committing a tumultuous, thank goodness I got that word out, tumultuous disturbance. This current assembly section under the bylaw lowers that bar and is not meant for things like lawful assemblies. In fact, the police and no one else has the obligation to allow and facilitate lawful assemblies, to ensure that others don't interfere with that person's right or that group of persons' rights of Canadians to publicly protest. In fact, some of you may be aware that some protest is going to occur in Tabor in the next few weeks around this issue. And our police service will proudly stand and allow that to happen. Panhandling is not new to us, except we did not have a panhandling bylaw in the past, and aggressive panhandlers are a nuisance. That's why it's in the bylaw. Now I want to get to the next section, which is no swearing, yelling, screaming in any public place. This bylaw section was cut and paste from another bylaw within the province. A bylaw that's been in place for many years. I agree that this bylaw is vague, but perhaps deliberately so. What I can tell you that in 24 years of being involved with the police, I have never arrested anyone for swearing. I have never given a ticket to someone for swearing. Don't forget, under Section 175 of the Criminal Code, it is an offense in public to cause a disturbance by using obscene language. Obscene language includes swearing. We do not anticipate in any way dealing with anyone for swearing, unless the context is such that it disturbs others. I'm telling you that right now. That includes yelling and screaming. But I do want you to know that under the Criminal Code, if you cause a disturbance by singing, you can be arrested. So I still may get arrested yet. Every other noise section that you find within this bylaw is found in other versions of our bylaws. None of them are new. So we also have a section in that bylaw called Severability. So this allows for a portion of the bylaw, if found unenforceable, to be severed from the bylaw while the other sections remain in effect. Is that self-explanatory, or do we need some explanation on that? I think it's fairly self-explanatory. Our police officers have already been briefed on the contents of the bylaw and have been given direction as to the education, warnings, written warnings, notices, tickets, etc. that can be issued for these offenses. We do not foresee an increase in bylaw prosecutions nor calls for service. I can tell you this, and you should be reassured by what I'm going to tell you now. And I hope it does reassure you. Taber Police have never been sued for a charter breach. We've been in existence for 110 years. There has never been a founded complaint against the Taber Police Service for a breach of someone's charter rights. We have an extremely high conviction rate. We have close to an 85% satisfaction rating amongst our community. We give talks to others about community policing and best practices in rural policing. As early as last week in Ottawa, at the summit on the economics of policing and community wellness, we gave a presentation to 300 police leaders, academics, and politicians. We also have the following layers of governance and supervision. The first are the police supervisors. The second is the chief of police and his or her authority under the Police Act. The Taber Municipal Police Commission, the complaints monitor with the Taber Municipal Police Commission, the Taber Town Council, the courts, which includes prosecutors and the local defense bar, the Law Enforcement Review Board, the Solicitor General, the media, and most important, you, the community. That ends my presentation. Does anyone from the community have any questions? Go ahead, Jen.
So I have to say I'm a little bit confused because I thought we were here to learn how the bylaw would kind of be implemented and how it would affect us on a day-to-day basis, and not to debate or in any way expound upon the merits of either side. But certainly that seems to have been what has been presented to us. This is why we think it's good, is the kind of the feeling that I'm getting.
Good.
So I didn't think that was the purpose of the meeting, though.
It's part of it.
On a day-to-day basis, Graham, how will this stuff be reported? Like, will neighbors be reporting on neighbors about swearing violations? That kind of stuff wasn't really covered, and that's more of the kind of stuff that I thought I was going to hear about.
Yeah, it's a great question, and thanks for bringing it up, Jen. I don't expect, as I said in the report, that we will see any increased calls for service, nor will we see neighbor against neighbor reporting each other for swearing. What we're going to see is status quo. Historically, what we've had with the same bylaw occurrences over the years, and you can see it in our annual report. We report on our yearly reports of bylaw offenses that occur within the UCR report, which I talked about earlier. We are not expecting anything. Our police officers are trained in problem solving, critical thinking. They are trained in how to de-escalate, in conflict management, and they will do their best to continue to do that, just like they have in the past. I believe that past behavior is indicative of future behavior, and that's what's going to happen again. It's the same 14 people in their uniforms as 2 weeks ago that enforced bylaws as it is now.
Excuse me, Graham.
Yep.
If you don't mind, I know you.
Please.
We're not here to debate whether this is
Yep.
a good bylaw or not. Do you guys have an opinion on, is this necessary for you do you look at this bylaw as being necessary for the police force, or wasn't there other means through the criminal code and the traffic code to deal with any issues?
Another good question. What we believe is that the more tools that you have in your toolbox, the better you can help the community. The criminal code is a hammer. It has very little leeway in relation to flexibility as to what we can do and can't do. It's codified. It also brings about sanctions that bring about criminal records. Not all of them. There are absolute and conditional discharges. But most of the convictions that you receive within the criminal code result in a conviction. I would put it to you that the bylaw is meant to deal with those issues that occur just below that. And we didn't have a tool for that before. So I would suggest that that's what that's here for. That's what this is here for. And we asked for some of it. As a police service, we are scanning continuously for issues that are occurring within our community and ways that we can properly address community wellness. This bylaw, for the most part, helps us with that.
Now, I don't know, I've only been in this town for 35 years. And
You're well known, and
when I came into town, nobody had me a handbook of community standards. And maybe I'm not up to date, but I don't know what constitutes a swear word anymore. Is there an official list, or?
yeah, it's actually the same. The same thing can be thought of with regards to the criminal code. The criminal code defines obscene language, and Regina versus Lawrence, I think, in 1992, defined that obscenity includes swearing. So the law is what judges will decide, not what the police will decide. If we bring before the court an offense for swearing, and the judge decides that that's a swear word, the person will be convicted if the law is found to be constitutional. If the judge decides that it's not a swear word, we won't.
So I still won't get a list.
There's no list. Are you going to swear at me in a different language?
I don't know any different languages. I have already enough time to think of it.
No, you didn't. You asked those questions eloquently. Any other questions from the public? Please, ma'am.
From what I came to this, I have a better understanding that I think the bylaws are great for table. And now that it's explained that it has to do with the criminal code as well, like I understand it better.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear that. I hope we made sense.
What I'm kind of hearing is that this is going to be easier for you guys to give out tickets, but then it's not a criminal offense. So that's, you're kind of putting it on the fact that this way then they don't get a criminal offense. But it also makes it easier for the hand out tickets then as well. So I mean, it benefits you as much as it benefits maybe the person you're giving the ticket to, but then they don't get a criminal offense.
Yeah, it's a good point. The only thing I can say to you is that we will monitor that. I do not see us issuing any more violation tickets, or they're not even violation tickets, notices under a bylaw, than we have in the past. And we showed you that 92% of bylaw complaints that we attend to, we actually don't charge. And of the 55 that we did charge, 54 either pled guilty, paid the fine, or were found guilty. That's a heck of a track record. And there's no benefit to us, none, to start whipping out violation tickets. It does nothing for us. The status quo of what we received yesterday is going to be what you see tomorrow. We just have a new tool to assist us for those issues that occur just slightly underneath that criminal code. Please.
I agree with your statement earlier about it all being going on in proportion. That has been my opinion right from the start, because I just don't get what the big deal was or is. And I have lived here all my life, so I had curfews, and I was struck down. about 145.
Thank you.
So, I mean, I think it's all good.
I think it's all a learning curve for all of us, like with this all blown out of proportion, like Lynn said. It's just a learning curve for all of us. It's no for you or for me, it's for the better of the community. So that's all I think.
Thank you. Jen?
One of the things you mentioned in your lecture, Graham, was that the revenues from tickets or violation, whatever you're calling them, goes to the town, which of course, being a small municipal community, the town can always use a bit more money. And this is a ridiculous question, but I'm going to ask.
None of them are ridiculous.
Yeah, this one is.
Okay.
Was that a consideration when creating the bylaw that you wanted to make more money for the town?
No.
And maybe this was a kind of...
No. There's a move afoot, Jen, within Alberta Justice to move quasi-criminal sanctions out of the criminal justice system. I can tell you that I've attended meetings recently in which very senior justice officials have told me that they would like to remove all traffic offenses from provincial statutes and actually make them administrative. Meaning you get a bylaw notice of some kind or some kind of notice, and you either pay the ticket reduced at a reduced cost, or you go to an ombudsman who will deal with that ticket, and natural justice laws will flow. No more court, no more judges, no more lawyers.
So why even mention it in your report that it was kind of a factor to consider when...
Because I see it as a benefit. I see as a benefit
so
if...
it's your personal opinion or the opinion of the police or the opinion of the town?
Well, I don't speak for the police service, the chief does, but what I can say is that if right now when we write a $115 ticket, a portion of that ticket goes to Alberta Justice and the Solicitor General, and a portion remains is sent back to the community. I'm not sure exactly what that amount is, but that's what happens. In order to pay for the administration of the extra work that's required to administer these tickets, some of that money staying will assist us. But as I say, we're talking, if each ticket was $100, we're talking about $5,500? If you looked at 2014 stats to be indicative of 2015, it's nothing. It's 2 insurance tickets.
I just have to do a call. I just got back from Chicago this afternoon.
Oh, thank you for coming.
And I actually watched this on several news channels. And like I say, I was very frustrated. I was very embarrassed that we actually had to hear that. And talking your way through it, I appreciate how you guys went through it. I do appreciate coming and taking that in. But just the whole overemphasize. Like I say, I was very disappointed in what I heard and seeing our downtown and seeing people give their opinion. I don't think we did a very good job of getting it out in a way that probably, say, if we would have known this, how it was coming out, it probably never would have made the media. But to hear this, I was very embarrassed to be part of the Tabor community just based on how expanded this was. So just as a call out, this isn't Tabor, this is international. It's an embarrassment to us for how this was all portrayed.
Thank you for that comment.
Well, I don't think it's a comment like Greg, you said, like you did not create the bylaw. It's a tool for you to use. I think the problem comes in from town council in enacting the bylaws, the way they deal. To me, something as important as this should have been discussed or plebiscite or some input from the public. I know the town, we're not here to debate the merits of the bylaw, but I see there are some town council members back there in the mayor. And I think there should have been input to the public before this point.
Exactly. It came out and basically it was a free-for-all, and the downside is the free-for-all went to the negative side before it ever went to what the positive benefits are, right? So I get that there's positive benefits in it, but like I say, it's out and it's global, right? So yeah, like why didn't we know that this was going on and have a way of getting that rolled out before it ever became one of the ones.
I really appreciate those comments, and the only thing that I can say that may put your mind at some ease, but I do agree that it is very embarrassing what happened, and there's certain issues that occurred that caused that. The bylaw went through a first, second, and third reading. The first reading is usually not very public because you don't know that it's happening yet. So it comes out at first reading. At second reading, there's debate with regards to the law, and at third reading, there's debate before a vote is held. In each of those occasions, the media, local media or other, or defense bar, has the responsibility to inform or make decisions in relation to those readings of those bylaws. It was reported on by the Taber Times in the, I believe at second reading, and I give them credit for that. However, there was no one else. No one came to council and took intervener status or made an application to council to say that this was going to be a problem. This is a common practice in municipal government throughout the province. We're not the first town to do it. We're not the second. We're not the third. I can go up to 20 communities to have done this. This was sensationalized. This was a social media frenzy. And it was perpetuated by a few who had self-interest. And I am very, very sad to hear that that happened. If those energies would have been focused in such a way to proactively come to the lawmakers or to proactively speak face to face with the people who make those decisions, those are all, in my view, this is me talking personally, reasonable individuals who would have listened. That did not happen.
Are there any other questions?
You were talking about large groups of people, and that is part of the reason why these laws were brought in. Did you try talking to the leaders of these groups of people?
That's a very good question. Do you want to answer that?
I would love to answer that.
Please do,
yes,
Chief.
Thank
this
you.
is Chief Rudd. Chief Alfred.
Yes, we have a ministerial committee that we sit on that's from the Mennonite community. And, I mean, it's no secret. We know that Taber is a settlement area for this group that's coming from Mexico. And we know that within the culture and tradition that there's gatherings take place. And so as preparation of the bylaw, this has gone on, at least for the police here, when we were doing an administrative review to modernize our bylaws and just be responsible in managing them. We realized that we would be going forward with sections like that to council and asking them to pass them into law. So in that process, we met with that ministerial group and presented that as a topic. I took that to the Southern Alberta Canadiers Association and asked for feedback. That's another group that represents and works amongst the Mennonite community. And this went on months before, and just to get that kind of feedback from them, to say, what do you think? Do you feel that this particular section on assembly may be impacting you in an unfair way? And the feedback that we got was no, that they don't see it that way, that they see that as just a manner of addressing behavior issues and matters of common decency. That's how it was interpreted. So it's not for someone to say that it's targeting a particular group. That's just polarizing the issue, and it's very unfair. And it condemns Taber when people make that suggestion that this law was made for that purpose. That is just unfair, completely. That's not Taber. So a lot of work and effort went in to consulting with that particular community. So, thanks, Graham.
Jennifer?
aren't you pinpointing that group yourself just by saying that you specifically went to those groups to talk about the bylaw?
Well, let's not be so naive, Jen, to think that it's not going to have an impact on them. Why, am I a fool? Am I not going to do that? Of course I'm going to do that, because I'm a responsible person, and that's what we do. I'm responsible for the police service, and I get support from my men. And of course I'm going to do that. Only a fool wouldn't.
Did you discuss it with other groups as well that may be directly impacted? You know, the groups that hang out outside.
You mean those that pee and spit?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, no, I didn't.
Okay. People who swear in public, people who gather in groups.
You know, our motto is involve, inform, and protect. Involve would be a nice thing for everyone to do. As Graham's pointed out, that whole process is transparent. The council doesn't hide anything. We got a website. It's in there. The media gets a package handed to them with the printed documents in it. There's nothing nefarious going on in the background. And that's the thing. You know, a discussion like that just polarizes. You know, what if? I can't go golfing now because I'm in a foursome. You know, it's just preposterous and ridiculous. But we're not here to debate, and I'm not debating. I'm explaining.
No, you're kind of yelling at me, actually.
Well, I want everyone to hear. And that's how loud I am. I think this gentleman over here had a question earlier, sir. It wasn't addressed.
It was partially answered, but
Good.
what concerned me was, and you mentioned right off the top about all the misinformation that came out initially. So my concern was, and maybe I've been under a rock, but if there had been more information up front, maybe a lot of that wouldn't have happened. But this is excellent information that's after the fact.
Yeah, well, I agree. And how can you anticipate that kind of reaction?
Well, the other factor was that the so-called experts in the media, i.e. lawyers, which apparently know the law. So if you're limited as to your information sources, you're not all over the internet or social media, which maybe even be more negative. But anyway,
Yeah.
that was my problem. I'm glad I came because I was under a lot of wrong impressions, and I want things to go on.
Well, that's good. Graham did an excellent job.
If a lot of these, these decisions before the actual bylaws happen, if the police commission meetings are open to the public, or is there only the council meeting?
No, the police commission meetings are open to the public as well. The documents went to the police commission. The package was handed to the media. All this happened beforehand. And why nobody was alarmed at that was because when you read it, you say, oh, that makes sense. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Oh, yeah, you shouldn't pee downtown. I get it. You know, and so there's nothing alarming about it. You know, it's when irresponsible people attach, preposterous, innocent scenarios to it. You know, oh, does that mean I can't go golfing with my husband anymore? Come on, we should be understanding that, and that's why I don't think it picked up any steam initially. It was because when the commission read it, when the media read it, months before it ever ended up in front of council, there was no alarm because they're just usual, normal, common sense standards of behavior that have existed previously, and we just codified some new ones. And so why would you think you'd react to that? Nobody did. So it was difficult, sir, and I get your point, to get out in front of that when there's no reaction, when it's got the exposure that it's originally received. How do you anticipate then that, oh, this is going to be a real storm? You do your legwork, you do your research. We get, what's your enforcement experience been like from other communities? What's your prosecution experience been like from other communities? We lined everything up. There's processes that we follow. So I like you, am stymied as to why. Well, I'm not, because I know in the world there are stupid people. So I'm not surprised at how it went. But it's still, for people to perpetuate that, and continue it and label our community I'm offended. Really, I'm offended at it. You know, and people in our community that participated in that need to do a little introspective interview in the mirror. So I don't want to hijack you. I'm sorry.
I'll have Mr. App and then Mr. Strawers, please.
I just wanted to say a couple of things. One is that I appreciate the clear presentation. Very hard to misunderstand that. The other thing I want to say is that I was with police when they have the regular meetings with the Mennonite leaders, and it's exactly like Alfred said. It's a good conversation, and very clearly discussed with them ahead of time, so there's no problem with that at all. I guess the most important thing I want to say is that, yeah, I agree with all the sensationalism, out of control, all that stuff. But what I can't figure out is how social media, I've been reading some of the stuff on the internet, and the hatred towards different groups that's allowed to be on the internet. Whoever runs that Facebook, that should be shut down. And if that isn't against the law, I don't know. It's embarrassing to read that stuff, and that incredible hatred towards different groups of people. And that's the community we live in. This isn't a bad place. I work day and night on settlement issues with the Mennonite people, get them into school, get them jobs, help them understand the country better. And when I hear stuff like that and see it printed on the internet, I just don't understand how that isn't against the law. It's horrible. And that's all I want to say.
Thank you, Mr.
And I guess the last thing I would say is that I've lived in lots of places. We've lived here for 18 years. And I've told the chief this many times that I've never lived in a community where the police is less approachable than in Taber. Taber policing, if community policing has ever been done anywhere, it's never been done better than in Taber. They're good people, they care about the community, and I'm proud to say that I can easily work with the Taber police.
Thank you.
We'll come back to you, Joe.
I just want to make one comment. This issue was first in the local paper Times 2 weeks ago, and was also carried in the Westridge Herald. Just so you know, it just wasn't brought up last week. It was out there. And if you're not reading the paper, I suggest you get a subscription and read the paper, because these people do a fine job of covering all the news that comes out of town, including the police commission and all. So if it's a lack of not understanding the issue, it was out there a long time ago already.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I don't think that this whole thing, you're not pinpointing the Mennonites or the this or that. It's everybody. Everybody has to participate and do their thing to make all this work. It's not just one group. It's us too.
Thank you. Sir? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Now, with the notes from the council, maybe put in the paper, there's a lot of people that don't read papers anymore. They go online. Why not put it on the Town of Taber Facebook page or something like that? So that, because more people are on there.
Council meeting do go on the website,
Oh, okay.
so you can electronically access.
Oh, okay.
You could have had that document.
But I have to tell you, if you don't mind me introduction there a little bit, Chief, I hear you loud and clear. Okay? The way that we communicate now is different from the way that we communicated of yesteryear. And I know that because even the Taber Times has gone digital. Okay? It's a good thing. I will take note of what you just said. Thank you.
Your worship. Oh, the ladies first. Go ahead.
If it wouldn't be for Facebook, I wouldn't have known about this meeting. I looked on the town council. I looked all over. I could not find any information. I wanted to get more information. I had to email a counselor, and she said, well, maybe check check Facebook, the police Facebook.
Yeah.
That's the only way I knew that. I don't know how other people found out about
Yeah. It's a good point.
Like, I found out more, I went to a garbage open house and found out a lot of information.
Well, I'm glad you found out enough to come.
But there should be some way of
Yeah.
communicating with the public.
And point taken, communication is a very important strategy within our organization. This is not a town council meeting. This is not a Taber Police Commission meeting, though. This is a Taber Police Service meeting. And we held it quickly. And the quickest way that we can get information out to the public, we have found, is through social media. And that is why we use Facebook. Now, this meeting is one of a few that we may have. I'm not sure how many people are standing outside and could not get in. But if there are more, we'll have more meetings. We may have the opportunity as well as streaming this online, so that other people may be able to hear what's happened here today. But point taken. Thank you. Sir, in the front. Sorry, Howard.
Okay, no, you go ahead, sir.
I agree that the media blew everything out of proportion. Will the media, and it gave Tabor a bad name, will the media do the same and clear the air for Tabor?
You know, I'm of the opinion, and I know personally, that some of the local media have been requested to do interviews and write reports or make comments, and they haven't done that. And they haven't done that because they did not want to, in my view, they did not want to further perpetuate or sensationalize the commentary that's going out there in cyberspace, in Facebook land, and ET Canada, and CNN, and BBC, who say we can't dance in Tabor. So I do give them credit for that. I'm not sure what ability we will have to perpetuate a positive image from this with the issues, with what's out there already. But what I can tell you is that we're going to try. And we'll do our utmost to allow people of the world to know how great a place this is to live. So I do appreciate that.
Can I say?
Yes, absolutely. Please.
First of all, I think on behalf of council, I can say that we are very proud of our police force. We do an excellent job of community policing, and I'm very impressed with this afternoon with the explanation that's given. I was a little leery about it, but I hope it's not going to be fuel on the fire. I'm just be honest about it. I was skeptical about it. I think Chief and Graham too, you did an excellent job explaining. And I know, if possible, I would like to see your whole speech online, if possible, for the public to see, because I think it's a very clear explanation, in depth, for everybody to see, and it might take away a lot of confusion. So I don't know if that's your intent, but if you can do legally, I would say we encourage you to put it out there for everybody. That might take away a lot of confusion. So I think, again, on behalf of council, you guys do an excellent job, and we appreciate you very much.
Thank you, sir. I think that ends today's presentation. You're free to break bread if you wish between amongst yourselves, or I only am available for media requests or inquiries, and we will do that in a few minutes once either the room is cleared or we can go to a quieter place and do that. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.